So you think you have a pretty good handle in the arena? Well, stick around. I'm going to show you a few games I play when I ride my horses out in the pasture. Okay, first up is we're going up the side of this hill, and there's a bunch of large boulders inset on the side of this hill. Now, a lot of times horses will spook at these the first time I walk through them, and he's been through them a few times, so he kind of knows the drill already. And I just use them to kind of maneuver around and work on my neck rein, to see how well he handles his feet, handles himself. He stepped on one right there, and he slipped a little bit, so he knows right off the bat, if he steps on one of these, he's going to slip. He has to handle himself well through these. He has to neck rein. He has to deal with all of my little distractions that ride with me everywhere. All four of them are out here with me. And he has to handle himself on the side of this hill. We really find out how good of a handle we have on our horse when we put him in one hand on the side of a hill, asking them to turn back and forth and figure eight and circle a bunch of boulders that are on the ground. Now you add to that an old dog that's just kind of standing there in the way, a young dog that's antagonizing him the whole time, and another one that's just kind of trying to figure out what direction we're going. It adds a lot of elements to the distraction. And also, we're on the side of a hill, so he definitely has to have some balance while he's working on this. Next up is going to be walking over down tree branches, all different heights, all different spreads. We're never going to be able to control how wide the stride is when it comes to stuff on the trail that we're going to be stepping over, whether at a walk, trot, or a lope. Okay, next up is side passing over a log. Now, I'm going to side pass him in the most difficult way possible, which is going slightly up this grade here. Also, the log that I particularly picked is kind of crooked. It's not a straight log. So it makes him work just a little bit harder. He has to move his hip over a little bit more than that front end to get around it because it has a slight curve to it. And at the end there, I put a little turn on the forehand, another step with his hind end before I go and change directions with him. If you want to make this exercise a little bit simpler, you can side pass downhill and pick a straighter log or a fence post that's down in the pasture, and that would make it a lot easier for you. You always need a side pass on a horse, whether it's in the arena, in the show pen, whether you are out on the trail or not, you need a side pass. If you get into a bind, you have to have a horse that will move his body any direction you ask to get you into a safe place. So you got to be able to test them in these circumstances to ask them if they're going to move their body over for you in case of an emergency. And so I finish up the little game by walking over a few more down logs. Again, you see how these logs are spread out all over the pasture. We can't control how many strides it takes till we get to each one. Now, the last exercise I'm going to show you guys is on the side of this hill. Now, I'm very fortunate that I have these lovely hills in the pasture that I get to work on. And this is a very slight grade here. We're not using one of these steeper ones that you see in the background just to go straight up and down. But I'm going to work trot circles on the sides of this hill. Again, I have 4 distractions out here with me, 1 antagonizer, 2 that just kind of get in the way, and an old one that's sitting in the back trying to figure out where we're going. I'm going to work figure eights, and at first I'm doing a sitting trot, and I'm in 2 hands just trying to show him the game. This is the game that we're playing. We're going to work these big circles. We're going to figure eight on the downhill slope and change direction. Again, to make this game a lot easier, I would stay in 2 hands, and I would do the change on the uphill slope rather than on the downhill like I'm doing. When you go downhill, it tends to create a little bit of momentum, and they increase their trot speed. And what I'm trying to do here is keep the same cadence the whole time. And if you haven't noticed, he's kind of sped up and slowed down and sped up and slowed down. So I'm trying to keep the same trot speed the whole way. Like he speeds up just a little bit right there. He kind of peters out when he gets to the top. And then when we start to go on that downhill slope again, he's gonna speed up again. And that's part of the balance. Now, this is what happens with colts. When they don't have all the balance, especially happens with 2-year-olds, they kind of begin kind of an avalanche feel to them, and they just go faster and faster and faster when they get on a downhill slope. And the measure of how much balance they have is how well they can keep their cadence on a slope, on the side of a hill, or any sort of terrain. And so not only am I actively riding him up and down these hills that you see in the background here, but I'm making him work on the sides of these hills. If you're trying to instill balance and cadence in any discipline, whether it's dressage, roping, barrel racing, starting your colt out, this will improve the balance and cadence on your horse and improve the footwork. It helps with the change of direction. I make it more difficult by going to one hand. I keep him on the same circle. I make the circles bigger and smaller. I'm using a lot of leg here. I am not riding him in spurs while I'm out on this particular ride. I didn't want to keep poking and jabbing on him, and I wanted to honestly see how much leg it took to help him do all of these particular maneuvers and these games that I was going to be showing you out here. He's having to work through all the distractions of the dogs, which is fantastic, because you know what? If you can't work through these kind of distractions, folks, you're not going to be able to work through the distractions of hauling them somewhere, working around other horses, working in a busy show pen or a practice pen, or dealing with banners and such. You got to be able to deal with a little bit of everything, so I take these dogs with me everywhere. They're super helpful. So I'm going to finish up here with a few more laps, and then when I feel like I've got really good cadence, good balance, he feels like he's in my hand, he's not pulling on me, he's not leaning on me with his shoulder, I'm going to go ahead and let him go in a straight line and continue on with our ride. I sure appreciate you guys watching. I hope this helped you a lot. Have a great rest of your day.